lecture, so I'm just putting a few videos online to give you a bit of an introduction to the human microbiome. So hopefully by now you've watched the first video, which is an animation which was put together by NPR a few years ago, which kind of gives you an overview of what the human microbiome is. And probably a lot of you will have heard about it before, because certainly it's pretty popular in the media and we do hear about it a lot now. So let's talk a little bit about the history of humans and microbes. So we've known for a very long time that our bodies are inhabited by microbes. And in fact, the microbes on our body were some of the first microbes ever observed. So back in 1676, Antony Leeuwenhoek scraped some gunk from his teeth and he had a look under his homemade microscope and observed these, what he called animalcules, swimming around. So this is a reproduction of the pictures he drew of those animalcules, and these of course look very much like the bacteria we see under the microscope today. So even though we've known that they're there for a really long time, historically the focus has been on pathogenic microbes, and this really came out of the observation that lots of diseases are caused by particular germs or bacteria. And this is based on the work of Louis Pasteur and then the development of Koch's postulates in the 1800s. So this makes sense, right? Because most of the time we can't see the bacteria, the microbes, and we generally aren't aware of them until they cause a problem for us. So this focus has led to really big changes in human lifestyle. We have better hygiene, we all brush our teeth to avoid gum disease and tooth decay, we have better sanitation, we make sure the water we drink is clean. But what we normally don't see, and what we haven't paid all that much attention to until more recently, is that the vast majority of microbes we encounter as humans are not harmful, and in fact very many of them may be important to our health. So one of the reasons that we think that they must be doing something rather than that they just happen to be there is that humans harbour distinct microbial assemblages. So this really suggests a history of coevolution. The microbes that we see in the human body are not the same microbes that you see in the soil or in the ocean. So what you can see here is an example where we have some phylogenetic trees showing particular types of bacteria that are found in humans and primates. And you can see that although we have the same broad types of taxa, so we have trees that have Bifidobacteriaceae and Bacteriadaceae, so these are families of bacteria. And so we have these types of bacteria, and so do these primates, but we have unique species that are quite specific to the different hosts that they inhabit. So this is really suggesting a history of coevolution. So when the human genome was first sequenced, one of the big hopes was that we would be able to cure and treat a lot of diseases, because it was thought that these diseases were in some way encoded into our genome. And while there have been some amazing outcomes from being able to sequence the human genome, that promise of being able to cure a lot of diseases hasn't really been delivered on. And people think that maybe one of the reasons for this is that our own genome is actually only a tiny part of what we're actually made up of. So how human are we? You may have heard before, and you would have seen in the video from NPR, that there are 10 times more microbial cells than human cells in the body. And that would make you 90% microbial. Actually, the latest estimates are that we are about 50% microbe if you're going on the number of cells. But regardless of the absolute numbers, the fact remains that we are inhabited by a huge number of microbes, and that the diversity of microbial genes in our body outnumbers our own. So we can consider ourselves as a superorganism, or a collection of multiple organisms working together. Or another way to think about it is as a holobiont. So this is assemblages of different species that form an ecological unit. And it raises the possibility that we can quickly evolve by changing members of our microbiome, much faster than we can evolve through evolution of our own genome. So if we want to understand human health and disease, we need to consider that in the context of the whole human body, and that really includes all these microbes that live with us. And so now people have started trying to apply microbial ecology to the study of the human body to try and get a better understanding of human health and disease. So just a few definitions here. What is the microbiome? Well, essentially, the human microbiome is all of the microbes that live in and on the human body. But you might see a few of these different words thrown around. So the word microbiome itself is actually referring to an entire habitat. So that would be all of the microorganisms as well as their surrounding environment. You'll probably also see the phrase microbiota, and this is really referring to just the assemblage of microorganisms that are present in a defined environment without necessarily measuring things about the surrounding environment itself. And then, of course, there's the metagenome, and this is really the collection of genomes of all the members of the microbiota. So there are many ecosystems within the human body. So if you think of areas like the skin and the nose, the airways, right, these all have different features about them, different parameters in each of these environments. Some are dry, some are wet. There'll be a lot more nutrients in some than others. Now, of course, the gut is the environment that has been the most extensively characterized, and this is the part of the body where we have the highest loads of bacteria, the highest numbers of bacteria. But there's also been work in all of these other body sites, including within the vagina, and there's some really interesting work being done there. And of course, you're going to be given a data set that you can look at if you like, and we will do this in the tutorial, having a look at a microbiome data set from a study of the vaginal microbiome. So what do they do for us? We know that they exist with us. We think they're specific to us. How is it that they've co-evolved with us? How are they helping us? Well, one of the things that we know that they can do is to help with energy harvest. So they're able to break down complex polysaccharides that we don't have the enzymes for, and therefore they make that energy source available to us in a digestible form. They can also synthesize various vitamins for us that we aren't able to synthesize ourselves and may not be able to get from food intake alone. They can also help protect us from pathogens, and they can do this in a few different ways. So that can be competitive exclusion. So that might be just being better at surviving on the resources available in the environment. So for example, in the gut, so not allowing a pathogen to take hold. But they can also do it specifically by producing inhibitory compounds. And so this is, I guess, an evolutionary way that they've developed to protect their own niche. So being able to actively inhibit other microorganisms. They're also really important for the development of our gastrointestinal tract and our immune system. So we know that they produce short-chain fatty acids, and one of the most important of these is butyrate, which has been shown to have a variety of effects, which is important for the promotion of our gastrointestinal tract, for barrier function, so maintaining a tight barrier and not allowing things to get through the gut into the bloodstream, and also to reduce inflammation. So gut microbes are also really important for our immune development, so not just in maintaining the environment within the gut. And there's been a lot of work done comparing the development of germ-free mice to normally colonized mice. And it's very clear that we need a gut microbial community to educate our immune system as we grow and develop. And we see that mice that grow without a bacterial community, so these germ-free mice, they have really underdeveloped immune systems, and they're very, very susceptible to infection. So their immune systems just aren't able to fight off a pathogenic attack. So this is just a few examples of some of the functions that we know of that the microbiome is providing to us. Okay, so just summing up what we've talked about here. So we sort of defined what the human microbiome is, talked a little bit about how we think the microbiome has co-evolved with us. We can consider ourselves as a holobiont, so a collection of organisms. The fact that there are distinct ecosystems within the human body, and that we think that there are many benefits that the human microbiome has in terms of our immune function and health.